As I've often said, the first duty of government is the safety of our community, and it is to the safety of the community that the announcement today is directed. Last night, the Director General of Security, ASIO head David Irvine, raised the terror threat to high. Consequently, today, the government is raising the public alert level to high. I want to stress that this does not mean that a terror attack is imminent. We have no specific intelligence of particular plots. What we do have is intelligence that there are people with the intent and the capability to mount attacks. I want to stress that there are people with the intent and the capability to mount attacks here in Australia. Our security agencies have raised the threat level based on an accumulation of indicators. The numbers of Australians in the Middle East fighting with and supporting terrorist groups. The numbers who have returned from the Middle East having fought with terrorist groups. The numbers here in Australia who are known to be supporting these terrorist groups, and the exhortations that are coming from the Middle East to the supporters of these terrorist groups here in Australia to prepare to launch attacks here in Australia. I want to stress that for the vast majority of Australians, the rise in the threat level from medium to high will not make any difference to daily life. What people will probably notice, though, is more security at airports, more security at ports, more security at military bases, more security at government buildings, and more security at large public events. I do think people need to be aware of the advice that we've received from the Director of National Security, but I also want people to be reassured that we do have highly capable security and intelligence services. We have highly capable police forces right around the country who will act with professionalism in these times as they do in all times. The public should have complete confidence in the ability and the professionalism of our agencies and our police forces. Of course, if members of the public do notice anything out of the ordinary, if they do notice anything that concerns them, they should ring the National Security Hotline, 1800 123 400. I would urge people who do notice things that are out of the ordinary to ring that particular number, which I repeat, 1800 123 400. There will in coming weeks be a modest public information campaign. I want to stress at this time, as I always do, that nothing that I have said today or nothing that I ever say about national security threats has anything to do with religion. This is about crime, potential crime, and combating crime. That's what it's about. I should also let you know that about an hour ago I briefed the premiers and the chief ministers. The opposition leader has also received a briefing on these matters, and I do want to thank the Leader of the Opposition for the general support that he has given to the government on these issues. I'm now going to ask the Director General of ASIO, David Irvine, to make some observations. Then I'll ask the Acting Commissioner of the Australian Federal Police, Andrew Colvin, to offer some thoughts, and the Attorney General, Senator Brandis, is also here to answer questions. So, David.
Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. For some considerable years, indeed perhaps since the Bali attacks, Australia and Australian institutions and people have been regarded by Al-Qaeda and its offshoots as, they would say, legitimate targets for terrorist attack. And in that time we've had, of course, the terrible loss of life in Bali, attacks in Jakarta, but here in Australia a number of plots have been thwarted, including the famous Pendennis activities in Sydney and Melbourne, and so on. The threat, therefore, has always been with us. What's happened in recent months, and certainly over the last year or so, has been that the events in the Middle East have increased the level of activity amongst people who support some pretty distorted views, extremist violent views, and we've seen a growth, as the Prime Minister said, an accumulation of indicators which give the security authorities and law enforcement increasing cause for concern. So we've had, as I say, there are now, I think, 10,000 roughly foreign fighters in the Middle Eastern conflict, and a large number of those are Australian. Between 60 and 70 are Australian, so it's a large number proportionally. In addition to that, we've had 60 to 70 people fighting in the Middle East at the present time. We've had people who've come home, and I use the figure tens of people who have come home, and there is a group of people who haven't gone to the Middle East yet, someone who would like to go, who are of concern to the security authorities as well. Actions that we've taken so far have included the removal of passports from a considerable number of people who've wanted to go to fight with the various factions in the Middle East. When I look at these issues, I think the Prime Minister is right in outlining three separate categories: people who are over there and fighting, who may come home, people who are here in Australia, people who have already come home, and people who are in Australia. All of these people have to be, because of their views and the sorts of things that they would like to do, have to be of real security concern. So over a period of the last few months, the concern has been mounting, and we have been considering raising the security threat level from medium to high, from meaning that an attack was possible to now to consider that attack is now much more likely. And it's a result of that accumulation of factors, the long history of Al-Qaeda types targeting Australia, the rhetoric that is now coming out of the Middle East, which is encouraging Australians to take violent action, and therefore increases the possibility of attacks here. And so we see an increase particularly in intent. I won't go into all of the details, but I think it is important that we raise awareness, partly by raising the threat level, and to assure people that the authorities, both law enforcement and the Security Intelligence Service, are very concerned about this and are watching it with great care. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Acting Commissioner.
Thank you, Prime Minister and Director General. The message that we wish to pass this afternoon is a simple one. We want people to be more aware, but we also want them to be reassured. While we're asking for increased vigilance from the community, we certainly want to assure the community that there is no need to be unnecessarily concerned, and in fact we want them to go about their normal business as they would on any other day. The response to the raising of the national alert level is that the security agencies will work more in a whole-of-government response. I think the community can be extremely confident in the network systems that we have across this country between police and our security agencies to deal not only with the increased threat level but with any counter-terrorism investigation or operation that we have to mount. Our counter-terrorism partners, our counter-terrorism arrangements in this country are very well entrenched, they're practiced, and the national network exists. While it's too early at this stage and not appropriate for me to go into exact detail of what the full extent of the requirements may be, I think it's important that the public should not expect to see significant changes in the way that police operate. As the Prime Minister has said, we can expect to see increased security at some events and establishments, but I repeat, we shouldn't expect to see significant changes in the way police will operate across the country. We're asking the community to be more vigilant. We're asking the community to be aware. We're asking the community that if they see something, if there's something that is unusual and they're concerned, then as the Prime Minister has already said, we would strongly encourage them to ring the National Security Hotline. We can't say that number enough, 1800 123 400. If they want more information, can I also encourage the community to go to the government's website, nationalsecurity.gov.au, nationalsecurity.gov.au, where there will be more information available to inform the general public. All police in this country remain committed to the response that is required. We work very closely together with our security partners, and as we've said on many times, and as the Prime Minister has said today, the protection of the Australian community is our #1 objective. Thank you.